Okay. So, just first impressions, just your overall take on it.
I think it was worth seeing just for the end of it. I think that was
Mm-hmm.
really satisfying. So
Mm-hmm.
regardless of whatever else happened in the movie, I don't care because the ending was
Mm-hmm.
they just fucking nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
It was exactly what I wanted, and like it was a resolution for those characters that I like didn't even know I needed until I saw it, and I was just like, oh my god, this is the saga is complete. This is what I always needed.
Yeah. I mean, as far as handling a situation where Harold Ramis is gone, and how do you address that and pay respects to it, they went so far above and beyond what I was expecting. I thought the whole plot of this movie was going to be based on him being dead.
Sure,
But
I think that was pretty obvious.
I think when you sit down at a table and try to brainstorm like how do we make a Ghostbusters movie without one of the most important characters in the whole thing? The logical next step is like, okay, well maybe he had a kid, or well maybe what if he had a grandkid? I mean, you could see where this plot of this movie came from.
Yeah.
I mean, but what I like about it is they did the most logical thing. They did everything right that Star Wars did wrong.
Yeah, I feel like I was thinking that too. Like, where Star Wars centraled around these new characters and then the original characters just kind of like thrown in there as extras. This was like the new characters facilitated the story of the old characters. So, like, you had some character development in there, but it was the whole thing was about the original Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I mean, I was worried going into it that it was going to be a bit like, some of the reviews I'd read said this just rehashes the old one too much or it uses too much of the old one's content. Whereas, like, I was happy to see all that stuff.
To me, yeah, it rehashed the old one, but it like gave background, like it filled out the lore of the old one. Because in the old one, it was just like, oh, there's this guy named Gozer, and we don't really know what he's
but they
about.
didn't really give more of an explanation of what Gozer is, but it was cool to see more of Gozer.
I mean, they gave a little bit more about like Shandor and what he was kind of doing.
That was cool. I knew something bad was gonna, like, the way they played that. I felt like they could have given Evo Shandor something more interesting to do, being resurrected like that.
Yeah, it didn't seem necessary for him to even be there.
If that's all they were gonna do with it,
Yeah.
it seemed like a wasted opportunity.
And they got, what is his name? J.P. Simmons, J.J. Simmons.
The guy who plays J. Jonah Jameson. Yeah.
Yeah. I like maybe he just got left on the cutting room floor because why would you get an actor like that to just be in the movie for 5 seconds?
Well, especially when you do this whole countdown, when they were like reading all the dates. Those are the dates when like Ray and Egon talk about like, oh, the Tunguska blast or whatever it is, like the Russian thing, that some kind of meteorite that left a blast. But as soon as I saw those dates, I was like, I know what all those things are from the other movie. And that implied that like there's a history to this, and I wanted to know more about like, so what is that history? And
maybe they left that open just because obviously like, after credit has Ernie Hudson opening the thing again.
Oh.
So maybe it was always their intention to be like, we're not going to explain this because we're going to explain it later. What we're doing with Ernie Hudson.
I hope to God that they make another one, and that was setting up another one because he's the perfect one to do it too. And I love the way they wrote his character to be the successful one that can afford to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
They did a really good job of keeping, I mean, they didn't stray too far. Like, they didn't really take any risks with the characters, but they kept them in character. Ernie Hudson talked the way you'd expect Winston to talk. The phone call with Ray, it was pretty spot on. And it's weird to see some of these guys act again because you don't see Dan Aykroyd doing shit.
No, just alien stuff.
But I'm just saying it was really cool to see him and feel like this is exactly what Ray would be like at this age in his life. But the big thing for me is I didn't even, because of the title being Afterlife, I didn't even start thinking about the potential for that to be referencing Egon until like a month ago. And then I was like, oh, because you and I have talked about this for years. It would be cool if they brought him back as a ghost. I'm pretty sure we sat down at Shooters one night and just said like, like there were so many things over the years that you and I have talked about, like, wouldn't it be cool to see this? Wouldn't it be cool to see that? And then that's exactly what they did.
And I think it's because you can tell Jason Reitman loves fucking Ghostbusters. So yeah, he's going to take exactly what the fans want and give that because that's what he wants too. He wants to see Egon still be a huge role in this movie.
Right. And then I started thinking, because like what, 2 days ago, I said something like, do you think Afterlife means that Egon is actually going to come back as a ghost and play a role in this? And you were like,
It was sort of like the Luke Skywalker thing in Mandalorian.
Don't want to have your hopes up,
where
because
I was just
that'd
like,
be too
I'm not
good.
going to believe it. I'm not going to believe it.
Well, because how good are we at sitting around coming up with a great idea that we'd love to see and then being disappointed when the movie doesn't even come close to thinking of that?
Yeah.
So when it started off out the gate, like we're 5 minutes in, and this is what's funny, because I remember seeing the 2016 one and just being like, we were 10 minutes in maybe, and I was like, what is happening?
Oh yeah, I remember being 10 minutes in and just groaning
Yeah.
out loud,
Yeah.
just like, oh my god, this is so dumb. But in this one, like the opening credits and they were playing the fucking music, I was just like, this is fucking yeah.
But they open up and it's like, here's Egon. He's alive. I thought they were just going to treat Egon like
Yeah.
he was, a distant memory. I had no idea they were going to show him alive, show him be part of it. Like, I can't believe they had the balls to do that, because so many movie studios would have fucked that up.
I feel like so many movie studios, and the problem with Star Wars is they try to cash in on the new audience. They need all these new, fresh, young characters so that 10 to 15-year-olds will be interested and they'll buy the merchandise. But this was just like, we don't just want to see 4 80-year-old men ghost bust. We need some new blood, but they kept it in the family.
I mean, I hope they make money off of this.
Yeah.
I hope this is successful for them, because this is exactly what I wanted. And I don't think it's the greatest movie I've ever seen. It's exactly, I get greedy. Seeing the old guys back and all the things that they did right just made me go, oh, I want a whole movie like this.
It's really hard because, like I said, you can't make a movie about just the 4 original Ghostbusters. Nobody wants to watch these old men for 2 hours.
I disagree. Watching Peter Venkman be Peter Venkman again, I could watch 2 hours of that any day.
I think that's why it's so hard, because what was so fucking good about the original Ghostbusters was the chemistry between those 4 characters.
Right.
And so you can't make a new movie without those characters and still get the same dynamic, because the original is just, there's one-liner after one-liner. They're just witty. They're bouncing off of each other. Every line is gold.
Yeah, this one,
it's unrepeatable.
Well, I mean, that one was such a comedy movie, whereas this one it tries to be funny, but like there's just, they were smart to not even attempt to be as funny as the first one, because those characters are why it's funny. And if those
actors is why it's funny.
Not every person on Earth needs to be funny in the Ghostbusters universe.
Right.
It makes sense that Venkman is. It makes sense that they have chemistry. But I mean, I laughed at things. I didn't even hate the little marshmallow guys as much as I thought I would.
I didn't dislike them as much as I thought it would. I thought it was just going to be like a cash grab so they could sell action figures, and I thought it was going to be really annoying. But then had it not been in the movie, I wouldn't have cared. I could have done without it.
I probably could have done with less of it.
But it was fine. It was fine.
I thought the daughter was great.
I thought she nailed it. She was really good.
I mean, there were several times in the movie, even in the beginning, where I just kept going like, oh, this is good. I'm buying into this. Oh, I'm feeling things.
I went in like Star Wars mentality thinking I was going to hate the new characters because they were taking away screen time from what I wanted to see. But they really, because they spent the whole movie using those characters to get you to the old characters. So it wasn't like they spent a whole movie on Phoebe like they did Star Wars, where they have a whole
spent a
movie
significant amount of time on that kid, but it
all
felt
like,
deserved because she's
because she was Egon. She was just Egon again.
Yes.
As a kid, it was like watching the beginnings of Egon.
But then when they started doing things like with the chess pieces, I was like, I mean, it all happened a little faster than I expected it to, but I mean, the pacing of the movie was already a little rough.
Yeah, that's my biggest gripe, is the pacing in the beginning was so slow. In the original, I feel like you're in the thick of it before you even know it. Like, it's a very fast-paced movie. Whereas this one, the first, half, I was just like, let's skip ahead.
It's like Christmas Eve, right? Where, we already knew that the old guys were coming back. So that whole time, I'm like, hurry up and get to something that blows my mind. Hurry up and get to something that really excites me. Because, if I had never seen a trailer for this, then I would have been shitting myself.
Yeah.
I would have been like, this is so great. But because we've been seeing trailers for this movie for 3 years? We've been waiting so long, and we've known the Ecto-1's coming back. We've known they ride with the proton pack and they do all this bullshit.
Yep.
But you know what? We went into it, and I said right before we went in, if this is just a bunch of what the trailer is, But everything that I saw that was outside the trailers, I enjoyed. Yep. I was like, okay, good. Paul Rudd's fun.
Yep,
and
Paul Rudd was good.
you know,
enjoyed him.
the podcast kid wasn't the worst. I mean, there were
I mean, I think he was there sort of as like a Ray character, whereas like
sure,
every reference
sure.
they made, Ray was there to explain it and give some context to it, and that was kind of this kid's purpose was
Yeah, true.
every time they mention a weird thing, he's like, "Oh, that's what this is."
I felt
Fill in the audience.
I felt the same. One of the things that I really liked that was just a random element is when they're testing the proton pack, the sound effects, they made that thing feel so powerful. When they're in the elevator and they're like, oh, each of us is wearing an unlicensed nuclear accelerator on our backs. You don't get the sense of like, these things are dangerous. I mean, you see them shoot like lightning and stuff.
Well, you do.
But
They switch it on and then they all kind of shift away from him because they're like, well, this is going to explode.
But you get that feeling yourself as an audience member with the way they made him sound in that test, because it sounds like a jet's about to take off. I mean, the sound effects in that moment was incredible. Like it gave me a whole new appreciation for the equipment that I didn't know I was missing. And then I was like, oh yeah, proton packs are fucking sweet. Like it just
they nailed all the gadgets.
I didn't care.
Cool.
I didn't care too much for the remote control trap.
I mean, I think it served its purpose, right? Because they wanted to have the Ecto-1 and Ghost Chase. So, how are you going to capture a ghost in a car?
No, it's a logical next step for what to do with that trap, but I thought it was a little too cute. When he throws the original trap and he like screws it up, it would have been cool to see that thing in action again, but I wasn't expecting them to make the whole movie about like Egon's plan and having all this stuff set up. And like it's from the beginning, it's kind of obvious when like the power fails and stuff, but I didn't realize they were going to come back around to that. I thought they were just explaining like he's been doing this dangerous work his whole life and it finally caught up with him. I thought that was the whole purpose of that scene. I had no idea that they were going to come back around and get that thing to work again, even though they didn't show them doing any work on it to make it work this time.
Well, Stranger Things kid, instead of firing at Gozer, he fired at the energy source to like boost it. You didn't notice that?
No, I didn't catch that.
He like they get it fixed and he goes to fire at Gozer to help, and then he changes his mind and switches and aims at the towers, and he like boosts that, and then that's what makes the trap work.
It happened really fast and I missed it. When they get the gatekeeper out of the trap, it goes into the girlfriend instead.
Yeah.
Because it happened so fast, I thought it was the mom again. And then they showed the mom, and I was like, what the hell?
No, because it makes sense. They had to make it the other girl.
Because she had the pack.
No, because she had to, because the mom had to be there to see Egon.
Well, but also, like, she was doing one of the packs, which I don't even know where it came from. A second pack just appears. But
well, it says that Egon took everything. He took all the packs. He took all of it.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that you would have more than one.
I guess that's true. But as soon as she turned into a dog, I was like, oh, this is where the other guys are going to show up. I mean, I knew the way they were going to show up was exactly how they did it.
Exactly. Like, yeah. Which is fine.
It was a thrill to see him on screen again.
Yep.
It was. I was all in as soon as they showed like old Egon, but you didn't see him. You didn't see him in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that makes sense. They're going to keep him in the shadows. They're not going to show us because he's gone.
I honestly wasn't expecting them. I wasn't holding my breath to get like a full like CGI render of him like they did Luke Skywalker. And then when they did and they nailed it and it looked fucking perfect.
That goddamn ghost Egon at the end of the movie looked more like Egon than Harold Ramis in the flesh could have looked like him in person at the age he was at.
Yeah.
I mean, when he at the end of his life, he was real puffy looking. You know,
he had cancer.
Even he's in As Good as It Gets. He's a doctor.
Yeah, he put it all on. Yeah.
But he put on so much weight that it was hard to picture Egon being that pudgy because that was never his like iconic look.
Right.
So to CGI
Harold Ramis old
as Egon was incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Because Egon is by far my favorite character.
Yeah.
He's the funniest. I fucking love him. And so like every time they mentioned him or like alluded to him, like I was choked up several times during the movie. And then to like when they actually showed him, I was just like, it was like seeing Han Solo
you cried.
for the first time.
You cried. I definitely like got watery eyed.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, what got it for me was seeing the four of them lined up together and he was busting ghosts with them again. I was like, I cannot believe what I'm seeing.
And I really appreciate that. I don't know whose idea that was, whether it was Jason Reitman's or not, but to just have all four of them lined up, none of the other characters,
give them the moment.
Four.
It was the Han, Luke, and Leia scene
that
we never got.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean they really learned from Star Wars and their mistakes.
Well, because I think it, like he said when it was first announced he was doing it, he said this is a love letter to the original Ghostbusters. He fucking loves it, and you can see it.
I had no doubt in my mind that he loves this franchise the way we do. I just didn't know how skilled he was as a storyteller.
Dad was there.
I agree, but like I have so much faith in that now, where I'm like, yeah, you can make another one, and I'll be really excited. Please make another one. Yeah. Like I never typically feel like I need to go home and get on Twitter and try and reach him and just say like, you nailed it, bud. You fucking nailed it.
Fucking nailed it.
And I felt that way about him. And again, I've tried to say, I don't think this is the best movie I've ever seen. No. I think it just gave me all the things I care about.
It just gave me everything I was looking for.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm greedy. I could do more. Like I was a little disappointed there was no Slimer. I felt I could see why if they brought Slimer back, it would have been too far leaning on the old one. But I
just have such a bad taste in my mouth from the 2016 Ghostbusters where they brought back Slimer in a really stupid way.
But the way they brought him back in Ghostbusters 2, because of the cartoon, how they kind of made him an ally of the Ghostbusters, I was expecting like when you least expect it. You know, like how they got knocked down and it was like, shit, now it's going to happen. I was expecting them to be in big trouble and Slimer appears and does something cool.
I think that to put Slimer in there would have been a little too much. Like
I completely disagree. I completely disagree. If they did everything else tastefully, even putting Dana in the end.
Dana, yeah.
I mean,
I missed Rick Moranis. I don't know, maybe he just wasn't willing to do it, but I did appreciate when Paul Rudd was possessed, he did the kind of Rick Moranis
I was actually
really
a little
fun.
disappointed because I was really expecting Paul Rudd to come out and say, I am Vince Glortho, because that's who he would be.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
And do an impression of Rick Moranis.
Yeah, because we got like there is no mom, only Zool. It would have been cool to have like a Vince Quartos.
Yeah, I mean, like, I thought it was weird in a way. It was like, who the hell is the mother? Who did Egon have a kid with? Because
not Annie Potts.
And I was thinking about it over and over, and I was kind of like, was there really anything about the movie that stopped them? There was no reason that she couldn't have been the grandmother. Because when they go out, I think the only reason was to be like, the kids didn't know who their grandfather was.
Right.
And it would have been really difficult to have her be the grandmother and then have them not have the connection. But they could have done it differently in a way where she doesn't enter the picture until later. You know, like the way she showed up at the house. She could have walked in the door and the lady could have gone, hey, Mom. And it would have been like, oh, shit.
Maybe Annie Potts just didn't want to be that involved with it. Because if it was like, they wanted Annie Potts in there, but if she was the grandmother, then they would have had to come up for a reason why she wasn't. Like, why she didn't have all the answers. Why she wasn't participating in all this.
I think you're right. But I think the way they wrote it, that the girl she was like, I never even knew my father. She could have just been adopted. I mean, they literally could have just, in some weird way, do you know what I mean? And then she comes out. I mean, I'm just saying it wouldn't have been that hard to figure out a way to tell the story where she shows up and she's the mother, because it's just one more character where you're like, who the hell was this?
I don't need Annie Potts to be the mother. But I liked that Egon sort of sacrificed himself. Like he had a wife, he had a kid, and he knew this bad thing was coming, so he sacrificed his happiness knowing his daughter was never going to know him to save her. And I think that really adds to his character, as opposed to like, oh yeah, I had a daughter, but then I like gave her up.
Yeah, but it could have been for the same reasons. He could have, it didn't need to be Janine as the mother, but it could have worked, and they could have done it in a way where he was just like, trying to protect them. He could have said something like, take the kids away and never tell them about me because I don't want them getting hurt. I don't want them involved in this. And so they could have lived this lie about their father. And then finally, when he dies and all this shit goes down, she could have showed up and been like, I have something to tell you.
I mean, yeah, they could have done a lot of things, but I'm not mad about the way that they did them.
And I loved the nod to her wearing the red glasses from Ghostbusters 2.
Yep.
And basically the cartoon, because her sort of character design in Ghostbusters 2 was so much more based on the cartoon than the first movie was, which I can appreciate the continuity, even if it's a really weird thing to try and connect a cartoon to a movie like that. But the cartoon came out and had such an impact that people people would have been confused if they'd gone back to Ghostbusters 2 and been like, how come Janine's so different than the cartoon?
Well, and I think trying to match the second movie to the cartoon really, that's why the second movie isn't as good as it could have been.
No.
Because they tried to make it more childish.
Don't get me started on why the second movie is not as good, because there's a lot of reasons and it's not simple. I don't know about you, but I sat in that movie the whole time holding my breath going like, when are they going to disappoint me? When are they going to drop the ball? When are they going to give me a punch to the gut?
It's been like the last decade of them remaking and rebooting and doing sequels to all of the shit that we adored as children, and then just dropping it.
I was expecting another Last Jedi moment where I went in so amped to see Luke Skywalker, and then halfway through the movie, I'm watching Finn and some new character ride a fucking horse for like an hour. And then Luke Skywalker, and then they kill him, and then they just did so many things wrong in that movie that pissed me off, and so I was just waiting for that moment with Ghostbusters.
I think they really benefited from people in our generation having so much disappointment, because it really lowered my expectations.
I agree.
If this movie had come out outside of all of that, I probably would have been like, fuck yeah, this is gonna be the greatest. And then gone in and be like,
they could have
done lackluster.
Yeah, I want more.
But because my expectations were so low, like they didn't have to do much to blow me away.
And there, you probably felt the same way. Like there were moments where I thought, oh, this makes sense why they chose this. Like being in a small town in the middle of nowhere, it was great for the mine stuff. But when they were driving around that town, it was so different than them being in New York City. But it also made so much sense because that's the only way this crazy shit like this could stay off the radar.
Right.
If it was just in a middle of nowhere town. So I appreciated like, okay, I understand this choice, and it's cool that we're seeing something different, but like the ending scene with the containment unit blinking, like it's kind of a no-brainer, but like I love it. Good move, and that could be anything, right? Because I started thinking, oh, like, is this Vigo the Carpathian? Who's in there? Who did they put in there?
Maybe Slimer's in there.
Oh, and I thought, are we going to see Slimer right now? I mean, it crossed my mind for a second, but clearly they were setting up where they could go with it.
I feel when they had all Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray and Ernie Hudson show up. Ernie Hudson looks so good.
Yeah.
And the others just look like melting old men.
Yeah.
And it's just like, damn.
Well, I mean, the first thought I had was like, this is so wonderful. The way Venkman was talking to Gozer about like, oh, here you come crawling back. They just nailed how he would be. It just made me go like, oh, can they hurry up and do a fucking sequel immediately before one of these guys dies? Because we had that happen with Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
And seeing them on screen is like, oh my God, you have to, like, it's preposterous that they made a different Ghostbusters movie in between this.
God, and it was the worst movie I've ever seen.
I was thinking about the cameos in that movie of the old characters.
Oh,
and
and
how much
like, they're not even their characters.
But how much those cameos pissed me off.
Yeah, those were really irritating.
And then to go from that to this, that's like unheard of. They literally rebooted a franchise and then we made a mistake, and then went back to the original continuity. I don't think that's ever happened before. And it was exactly the right thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, it's so unbelievable. It's so unprecedented that it's like, it would be like Disney coming out and going, those 3 Star Wars movies, we're just going to erase them and do it over. And we're going to get Harrison Ford back, and we're going to get Mark Hamill back, and we're going to make a CGI Carrie Fisher that looks so goddamn good that you believe it and you feel something for it. And we're going to just tell the story that you wanted. I'm not saying they're going to do that. I don't think they ever would. But that's how unbelievable it feels that they did this movie. I mean, not to change the subject, but like there were a couple things I missed. Like I felt like the scope of the movie was small compared to the New York thing. And I feel like they were implying that this was a bigger deal than New York.
I don't know that they were implying. I mean, at the end of the day, they saved the world from the same bad guy.
Yes, but what I'm saying is in the first one, you had the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, but they tried to copy that scale in the second one, and it was dumb with the Statue of Liberty thing. So I'm glad they didn't try to recapture that sort of like moment of like, oh, it's a giant thing smashing through Manhattan.
It would have been cool if they had found a tasteful way to do the form of the traveler. The traveler has come and all that stuff. Like it would have been cool to see them.
You know why I think they didn't? Because in the original one, it's like these 4 grown men, these 4 scientists, super smart guys who are doing this, and they can save New York.
Sure,
these
and
are
these
children.
Are just children, yeah.
You can't have children save all of New York. That's
100% agree.
a little that pushes the suspension of disbelief a little too far.
But
this is small town more believable.
But they did things so well in this that they need to make more.
I hope so.
They need to
I
make
hope
more.
they make enough money.
But well, yeah, I mean, and that's what it's going to come down to. And it sucks because I feel like if this hadn't been delayed as many times as it was, and if COVID had not happened,
Yeah.
because what is this, the second day it's out?
Yeah.
The theater was like less than half full.
Our theater. I mean, our
Yeah.
theater's never full.
I know,
Our
but
theater's
like,
shit.
it wasn't like going to see Star Wars where like there's not an open seat in the whole damn house. And I understand why. The love for Ghostbusters is not as wide, but it's deeper.
Yeah. Well, and like we were talking about when we were in the car, like when I first heard this movie was happening, like when they released that first teaser with like the Ecto-1 in the barn, I was fucking stoked. I was so fucking psyched. But it just got delayed. It got pushed so far that like we were driving there and I was just like, I'm not even really excited.
Well, and
Because I'm kind of over this.
there were surprises in the movie for sure, but there were also moments where like I don't think the whole let's subvert expectations is a justification for The Last Jedi. I think that's
No.
bullshit. I would have rather had a Last Jedi that was like this. Even if it was like, yeah, I saw that coming. Yeah, I predicted that like 6 years ago. Yeah, that's how I would have written this movie. Sometimes you don't have to like try and outsmart the audience.
It's a classic for a reason.
Well, but I'm just saying.
Just pay some fan service and move the plot forward.
But putting the characters in the logical place they deserve to be. Ray's still in his bookstore from the second movie. Smart. That's where he should be.
Yep.
That's because if you sat around and daydreamed about like if these characters were real, where would they be right now? You don't have to do something stupid about it.
Yeah. Well, because when you look at it, like at the beginning of the second one, Ray and Egon were the only ones still doing it. So it makes sense that Ray's still in the fucking bookstore and Egon's still doing the supernatural shit and the other two have moved on.
But they did a nice thing. I mean, even creating the sort of situation where Ray doesn't believe Egon and they have a falling out or whatever. I mean, it reflects real life. It reflects like Bill Murray and Harold Ramis not talking for how many years and then getting it back together at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder what it feels like. You know, I don't know how invested those men are in this movie. I know Bill Murray is not like the hugest Ghostbusters fan, I don't think. But for Bill Murray to see him with Harold Ramis on screen like that, and I can't speak for the man, but if it were me and I had dug my feet in the ground and refused to do a Ghostbusters 3 for whatever goddamn reason, and then I missed my opportunity and my friend died, it would make me feel better to see this movie and go like, yes, we paid our respects to this person, you know, and the way they look over at him and then the way they resolve their shit with the characters. And Ray says, I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I mean, that was closure on a lot of levels, both in like the real world and in the movie world. You know, I feel like I've already said this, but just the way they really committed to Egon being the afterlife aspect of it and really participating and showing, you know, taking his daughter down and showing her like, yes, I did care about you. And like, he's really there, you know? I kept thinking, are they going to make him speak? And they didn't, and that was okay. And I understand why they didn't. But hearing his voice again, if there was a way to do it, would have been incredible. I mean, because the stuff they've done with Mark Hamill and making him sound young and all that. But like, even in Mandalorian, Luke Skywalker, I buy it, but just enough. I mean, it looked close enough to him, but it didn't look. It was very obviously.
Yeah, and at the end I was wondering if they were going to have him speak, but I mean, looking back, what would they even have had him say?
Yeah, no, I know.
That would have been satisfying.
Still, boy, did they nail it. And you know, I remember looking at the trailers, another comment I think I had like a week ago was the CGI in the trailers looked a little iffy. I remember complaining, like, why did they do CGI? They should have done stop motion. They should have done puppets and made it really look like the original because, like, the terror dogs in the trailers, they look like a fucking cartoon. And it really bothered me. And I was like, oh, you know, because the Stay Puft little guys looked like cartoons.
Yeah.
But the terror dogs on screen, I was like,
good.
shit, this looks real. This looks incredible. I didn't really like the little blue guy. I felt like, and, you know, okay, they gave him a cute name like Slimer. To me, that just felt like we're trying to sell another toy.
Yeah.
I mean, it did cross my mind, though, when they let him out of the trap and he ate the bars for them. I was like, are they going to make him a new Slimer in the next one? Are they going to be friends with him at some point? I don't know. There's a lot of directions they could take it. I am almost positive when they show, like, the city being attacked and that eyeball monster comes out, I am almost positive that is a toy from the real Ghostbusters line.
Well, I didn't even watch the real Ghostbusters, and I saw that, and I was like, I bet that's a fucking monster from that show. That looks just like the artwork I've seen.
It was a really cool little nod to that. And like, I would love to see more ghosts because just combining those two feelings, right? You know, like real Ghostbusters had some interesting, creepy ghosts that if you think about the Ghostbusters movies, the ghosts they show are kind of few and far between. Like, you know, they had like some zombie guys, like the guy at the diner was kind of like the cab driver. That made sense. Gozer was awesome. The dogs were awesome. The Stay Puft was okay. The little blue guy, but okay, what was the thing they let out of the trap in the beginning by the buses?
That was the dog. That was the terror dog.
That's what they let out of the trap?
Yes.
Okay, I see. All right.
That's how in the beginning Egon's running away because Gozer is after him because he has one of the terror dogs.
Right. I also loved the way he sits down in the chair and the
Yeah.
arms come out. Like that's how they get him. It was so because I was almost like, is that the same chair? You know, I mean,
I like how they did it like Egon had a plan, like he was going to trap Gozer in this big trap that he made. And then it failed. And then he just like went in the house and hid the ghost trap and sat down. He was like, okay, they're going to get me. I'm going to die. And I'll figure it out once I'm dead.
well, and I was wondering what exactly made it possible for him to come back the way he did. You know, because that, you know, is it just because of being near that mine, being near that sort of psychokinetic structure that was built?
I mean, he spent his whole life investigating this thing. I'm sure he had figured out in all of his, you know, decades worth of research, like, oh, this is why people come back as ghosts. This is what I have to do. Maybe it's like Casper the Ghost rules where he has unfinished business.
That's exactly what I thought it was, because it seemed like as soon as he hugged his daughter, then he left.
Right.
And it seemed to me like that would have been his unfinished business. Like, my family doesn't even know why I left, but this was just too important. I feel like I've been way more critical of other movies than I am of this. But again, I'm kind of easy to please in some ways. Like, you get enough of it right, and I won't be too hard on, you know, the mistakes you made. And I don't know. I feel like there's...
Yeah, I feel like the only thing I was expecting from this movie is, like, the only thing I truly wanted was make Egon involved and bring back the old characters in a meaningful way. And they nailed both of those. So I can't be too harsh on it because they did it.
And it was so fun to see Dana and Peter at the end.
Yeah, Dana and Peter.
And then doing the cards thing, that was a smart move. And yes, this movie really is a love letter to the first one more than it is trying to be its own thing.
Yep.
And I'm totally good with that.
But I think this movie can afford to not be its own thing, because now you've got people like us who are fans of the originals being like, okay, if you want to make something new, we'll be into it. We'll come see it for you.
Well, it was just like they did such a good job with the girl that I was like, oh, I'm excited to see what she does next.
Yeah.
Because she was so clearly like Egon reincarnated, basically. And then the way he was like talking to her and teaching her how to fix the proton pack and stuff, I was just like,
playing
you know what?
chess with her, I thought that was really...
It was perfect.
Yeah.
I was really like, yeah, this is fucking rad. This is really good.
I really appreciate that they didn't spend too much time on the new characters.
One of the things that actually did bother me that I felt like was a missed opportunity, and I leaned over and said it to you, and then I was disappointed when I was wrong. I kept looking at Ecto 1 and being like, okay, this is clearly the original car, Ecto 1, but where is Ecto 1A? Because that's the Ghostbusters 2 car. And I was like, I could totally buy into the fact that there were two cars and they had different license plates. It would have been nice to acknowledge that, and maybe they were just afraid of creating more confusion.
I mean, they really didn't reference the second Ghostbusters at all that I could see.
Oh, when they dropped down into the mine, I leaned over to you and I said, oh, you think it's going to be the
I know,
river
and
of
I was
slime?
just like, no, it's not.
And that's okay that it wasn't, because I feel like that was unrelated to Gozer anyway, but that would have been an even more like, oh, shit, it's everything's happening, you know, like... My only gripe is continuity-wise, like, are you telling me that when Ghostbusters 2 came out in that timeline, they repainted the logos on the car and added all the extra lights and shit, and then somehow it got stripped down to the original version and that's the one in the garage? That doesn't add up. They should have addressed that, yes, there were two cars. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I always assumed that there were two cars.
Okay, well, it would have been cool to see the old guys show up in the second car. That's all I'm saying. If they had come barreling down the fucking with the sirens going and stuff, and you know how it said we're back running across the side, that would have been rad. I mean, that would have been a cool throwback to really tie the whole thing. I mean, it's fine, and maybe we'll see it again someday. But that's what I would do. And I'm not saying Ghostbusters 2 needs a love letter movie.
No. I was thinking, like, at the end of this movie, are they going to do like a poor Harold thing because that's gonna fucking kill me.
Yeah, and then
and
that's
then
exactly
they
what
did,
they
and I was
did.
just like, Jesus.
Yeah, yeah, it was done really well. I mean, it's not often like
I mean, Star Wars didn't do that. One of their main fucking characters died, and they didn't do like a fork Harry.
they might have. I just blocked that whole movie out of my memory. I have no idea what they did. There were things about this movie that like it reinvigorated my love for it because they've really been bleeding out. What's the word? They've really been milking the franchise, milking the first movie for so long that I'm sick of the merchandise. No, I'm sick of the logo being everywhere. Like I don't need that. I
Want something new to love, something new in the same universe.
But there were moments, like I said, with the proton pack and the trap. There was something about the trap. It made me go, oh yeah, these tools are badass. And it reminded me why I loved them so much as a kid. Like I was carrying this mic cable out to the car and it was wrapped up and I was like, this is like a ghost trap cable in my brain. And it just reminded me of when I was a kid, how exciting that would have been. It reminds me of the toy one I had with the yellow cable. It gives me hope for something like bring back the fucking Jim Henson Ninja Turtles. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why do they keep trying to reinvent the wheel with some of this stuff and then just making garbage? Those 2012 or whatever, the Michael Bay Ninja Turtle movies are trash. The Ghostbusters 2006 movie was trash.
It's because they're not doing it with any heart. They don't care about the fans that loved it before. They're just trying to cash in on the new fans.
And that's why having Jason Reitman be the guy.
Yeah.
I think that was just goodwill towards the fans to be like, okay, this is our message to you that we realize how much we fucked up. But it's just tough, right? Like when they announced J.J. Abrams was going to do Star Wars,
yeah.
I was like, yeah.
I remember they announced J.J. Abrams doing Star Wars, and he like made a promotional video where he had like Muppets walking around behind him.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, fuck yeah, Star Wars and Muppets, great.
He gets it. And you know what? I don't have a whole lot of complaints about Force Awakens.
No.
I thought that set up that trilogy just fine. I was really annoyed what they did to Luke Skywalker not even having a fucking line in the movie, and I was really annoyed that they killed Han Solo in the first one. Like, get Luke, Han, and Leia back together like the beginning of the second one, and then separate them and then kill them. Like if they'd killed Venkman or something in this, I would have just been like, "Fuck you! There's just no reason."
Yeah.
And when they all got like thrown around, I was like, "Oh no! Are they gonna kill one of them? Are they gonna kill all of them?
I didn't think that they would ever have killed any of them.
I would have fucking rioted. Like Tony Stark's death, that was earned. That felt right. That felt like
that was after 10 years of.
And he did his life's most important act. But I'm excited for what's next. If something's next, I hope they make money. I'll be telling everybody I know, go see it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, whatever else you think about the movie, that ending, seeing those four, that's it. That's worth the ticket price. That's worth sitting there for 2 hours. That was enough. That's all I wanted.
I'm glad I didn't watch that on a streaming platform. But at the same time, we are living in a world where stuff like this can exist solely on the streaming platform. I mean, look at what Disney is doing. They're just throwing money at everything to make content. So maybe Sony goes, I don't think another Ghostbusters movie can make the money we want to make. But maybe they make a fucking series. And maybe it's Ernie Hudson leading, training a new team.
Yeah. Do it like the Extreme Ghostbusters. Yeah. But instead of Egon, you're doing Winston.
I mean, because you wait a couple years, that girl's going to be grown enough to be an integral part of that. Yeah. Even if she's just the brains behind. She doesn't have to be the lead. I thought the brother, I could take or leave him.
Yeah, he wasn't an integral part. He was sort of like the Winston of the thing where he needed everything explained to him.
I suppose that's true.
He didn't really believe any of it.
Yeah, that's true. The PKE meter was cool, but I felt like it was used. It was definitely cool what they did with Egon. I mean, I knew the movie was going to be fucking sweet when the way that they let the audience know that Egon had died is when they show him sitting in that chair and you're like, is he okay? And then the PKE meter lights up and I was like, oh my God, he's a ghost. Like, it was rad. It felt, I don't want to say Spielberg, but you know what I mean? It had that kind of like E.T. vibe or something.
Like I can just see like Jason and Ivan like working out this story with their writers or something and be like, okay, Egon dies and the PKE meter goes off.
Yeah,
like
and everybody's
just like, fuck yeah. Like, that's something like you would discuss with all of your friends. Like,
wouldn't it be cool if they? Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, Oh man, would I love to be able to be in the writer's room for the next one and just as a fan and be like, throw some ideas at me and I'll just tell you if that's something I would like to see. But I don't know. I don't know where you take the next one, really. I know I want to see it, but now they have the freedom. Now they have
Yeah.
the freedom to do whatever they want because they've wrapped this up so neatly. I mean, Egon disappears at the end, and I was kind of like, okay, so never going to see him again. But that makes sense because he is dead in real life. So
Right.
you got to wrap it up.
The 2016 Ghostbusters is all just like women, pandering, feminism.
No, they didn't really jam anything down your throats. in this
No,
one.
and I feel like they made this really
No.
inclusive naturally, whereas like pretty much every single movie I see today, I'm just like, God, I get it, inclusiveness. Whereas this was just like, yeah, like she's clearly like autistic, but it never once was even acknowledged. It just was the way it was.
I don't know if she was supposed to be autistic in the movie or not. It kind of alluded to that.
I think they mentioned like I don't show emotions like normal people do. Or I think there was a line in there that was like overstimulation makes me calm.
Yeah, that was the line where I was like, oh, they're really trying to imply that she's autistic here.
Yeah. And that's fine because it wasn't shoved in my face and it wasn't like her defining characteristic like in the Power Rangers movie Billy was autistic or
Right.
whatever.
And
And
it
it's
was
just like, we
just
fucking
constantly-
get it. Jesus. Let them have a personality outside of this.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like they, again, to compare it to Star Wars, I mean, with Rey, I started off being like, I'm curious where this is going to go. And then there's just no character development whatsoever. Whereas with this girl, it was like, I literally came out of the theater going like, man, if my daughter was like that someday, I would be really excited that my daughter was smart and a nerd. And I feel like if I can feel that way as a 35-year-old guy, then I'll be able to show this movie to my kids.
Oh, yeah.
And this can be their movie. And this can be their reason they love Ghostbusters.
If I had seen that as a little kid, as like a 12-year-old kid, I would have absolutely identified with Phoebe. I would have been like, I fucking love science. This is fucking cool.
Yep. Way to go to make an actual hero character that I feel something for and not just like whatever the fuck the Eternals characters were supposed to be. It's like with anything in your movie, just do it with a purpose. Do it
Yeah.
with a meaning. Don't
Well, and do it genuinely.
You read me a drunk quote from years ago where I said something about Falcon is going to become the new Captain America. And what did I say? That makes my balls tingle or something
Yeah,
like
something
that?
like that.
So, I mean, when they came out with Falcon and the Winter Soldier and then he became the new Cap, I was prepared for that. I was into that. And I'm excited about that because they did it with heart. It's not perfect. None of this stuff is perfect, but like it's good enough that I can buy into it and feel good about it. I mean, the first thing I did when the credits rolled was like text like 3 group chats and just said Ghostbusters was great. And I think that's saying a lot because first thing I did when we came out of 2016
Oh,
was got on
dumpster
Facebook.
fire.
I got on Facebook and just bitched.
Yeah.
And, started
Fucking terrible.
started a shitstorm, and then I had to listen to people try to tell me I didn't like it because it was women. No, I didn't like it because it was a piece of shit.
Yeah. It was a piece of shit. And I wasn't a fan of any of the actresses in there, and I was expecting that to be the reason that it was bad, and it wasn't. I honestly believe that those actresses did the best they could.
Oh my god,
The writing was just garbage.
Yeah, there's nothing. What can you do?
I wish it seemed. I mean, from the end credits, it seems like Janine's going to be more a part of it going forward. But I wish that there would have been more Janine. I mean, she was only on screen for a minute, and she didn't really do anything except like explain that Egon was out there alone.
Yeah, I mean, it was all right. Well, they could have had her suit up or something, but it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
I would love if that ending scene is implying that like she's gonna be. Winston says I started my company with 1 employee, and I thought he was implying that it was her. He said, hey, this Ghostbusters gig is kind of shit now. It's over, but you want to come work for me? I'm going to start a company, and they built it up together. I don't know. I don't know if that's what they were trying to say or not, but if they're going to have to go back to the firehouse, which, what did they say? They said something about the fire. I think the firehouse is a Starbucks now. And so I was like, oh, shit. So they're never going to show the firehouse again. And they show it, and he clearly still owns it, and he brings the Ecto-1 back in. It was just like, fuck yeah. Where are we going with this? I wish there was some more scary stuff in it, like the library scene. The reason this movie worked like the first movie is because even though the first movie has really quick pacing, you still go through this development process of like, they go from like, are ghosts even real to like how do we turn this into a business to, they keep sort of leveling up in that regard. And this movie works because now you're living through that same thing through the eyes of these kids.
Right.
Because it makes sense. Yeah, there was this event 40 years ago or however long ago, and then ghosts went away because they defeated that thing, and that was the cause of all of it. Whereas, I mean, the other direction they could have gone is that, like, they're Ghostbusters Incorporated, right? And, like, their ghosts are just an accepted part of that universe. Everybody knows they're real now.
Which I think I'm glad that they didn't go that way, because that would almost completely negate Ghostbusters 2. Which, again, they'd never even referenced in this movie, but...
They did. Ray's bookshop.
I guess that's true. So, in this, Ghostbusters 2 is canon, and, like, so it wouldn't make sense to have ghosts just be an accepted part of life, when in Ghostbusters 2, everybody had already forgotten about them and thought they were liars.
Oh, I think in the theater, as the movie was playing, I leaned over and said, what if Oscar is the woman's husband? What if he's the deadbeat dad? Yeah, again, it doesn't have to be like Star Wars where everyone's related. That's fine. But it would have been an interesting nod, and they seemed all about that shit.
I think they just didn't bring up who the dad was because it wasn't relevant. It's just that there was no need.
Sure.
There was no need for it to be Oscar. There was no need for it to be anybody.
I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. If they did make more of these movies, eventually I feel like that subject has to be addressed.
Maybe.
I was trying to argue with you that because of the way Venkman acted in the opening scene with the cards and the blonde girl, who was, half his age, and he's trying to get her to go on a date, I was like, shit, did Venkman have children with Egon's daughter?
No.
Because she was saying, yeah, he's a dirtbag. And I was like, oh my God, I would almost bet money there's a version of the script out there somewhere where somebody made a note like, should we do this?
No. It's gross. Like, as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, that's fucking gross.
It's gross, but...
And then how could you bring back Venkman into the story knowing that was the case?
Just that it fits with him being a creep.
Nah. Because he's a likable, like, yes, he's kind of a creep and a dirtbag, but he's really likable and relatable.
Yeah.
But, like, sleeping with your friend's daughter and getting her pregnant and then abandoning them, like, that's, like, a level of, like, okay, don't like you anymore. And they have to keep him likable.
He got with Dana in the first one, and then in the second one, when it starts, they're not together, and we have to go through it all over again. It's like they're broken up or divorced or something. She's got a kid with somebody else. And, I guess there you go. They never talk about who Oscar's father is either. Right? They don't say shit about it, really. So I guess that's just the way they do things in Ghostbusters. I loved the fire pole down to his man cave or whatever. I loved the little nods, the little helmet, the helmet that he wore in the first one.
Yeah.
The jumpsuits in the closet. Even the computers in the background were like the same ones from the old movies.
I was just going to say, I feel like, he didn't get a lot of screen time, Ray. I feel like he didn't really have a lot of like his like super enthusiastic goofiness. You know what?
They did a really interesting thing though in the phone call, because he was grumpy and bitter.
Right, and then as soon as she said he died a week ago, he was just like, shit.
But he perks up in a way. Once he starts taking her seriously a little bit, you see it come back, and he's kind of like, oh wow, like he wants to be excited about it or believe in it, and it was pretty decent acting, I think. I don't know how hireable Dan Aykroyd is at the moment. But, as far as that character is concerned, that guy is a fucking legend. Like, he deserves, it was good. I hope, I've said it, I'm being greedy, but I'd love to see those guys on screen again. Let's fucking do it one more time.
Well, sounds like we have Ernie Hudson at least.
And it doesn't have to be these guys out busting ghosts necessarily. But are you telling me it wouldn't, like Ghostbusters Academy or something, where they're just teaching the new class and they're like... It would be cool. I would love to see them be teaching the new characters how to do it right. Because, I can totally buy that the girl was smart, but I had a little bit of a hard time believing that she was so good at using a fucking proton pack. Like when they shoot a truck, and it reminded me of when they shot the toilet paper cart in the hotel. And the comedy was different. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they didn't even try to do the comedy of the old one, because how could you?
Well, I still laughed. I still laughed a few times. Some of the, I don't know if her jokes were that funny, but there were some moments.
They were charming the way that it was part of her character, that she was like so awkward and I
called Gatekeeper and Keymaster early, which
well, yeah.
I don't think it seemed it's slightly forced. It seems slightly less earned than maybe that's because that was a rehash that I didn't necessarily need. Because when Lewis becomes the Keymaster, it's just a joy to watch him do
I
anything on
know.
screen.
I know. That's why I fucking missed Rick Moranis.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, he got so many classic scenes, whereas, like, Paul Rudd, they didn't really give him much to do that was, like, super.
Yeah, because I feel like Rick Moranis in the original, like every time he's on screen, he's just fucking funny. He's just playing this character that's hilarious.
Yes, have some and all that crap.
Even before he's the Keymaster, just Louis Tully is fucking funny.
Sure. You know, it seemed a little convenient that though our summer school teacher is a seismologist and there just happens to be
Well,
earthquakes.
that's why he went there.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think actually the best part of Paul Rudd's role in the movie was it was just one more way to show how fucking smart the child was.
Right.
Because when he's talking about the waves and stuff and she's like, "I know what they are." He's like, "Okay." Like makes it believable that she's smart. I would have liked to see maybe a flashback. It's disappointing to hear that essentially they're treating it like the big event happened in 84 and then nothing ever happened again until now.
Well, they didn't say nothing ever happened. They just said Gozer didn't happen.
That's true. That's true. They said they went to like one ghost a week or something, right? I guess that's it.
For now.
Yeah.